Greetings, ladies and gentlemen and students, and welcome to the Library of Monsters. Today's book is not going to be a book that's actually based on a monster today. It's instead going to be a storytime video, one that I've been meaning to get off my chest for a while now. I've noticed that a lot of Godzilla fans nowadays like to talk about how the G community is in the pits. They mainly believe this because there's a few people whom have different opinions other than them. Some say Shin Godzilla is the best Godzilla movie there ever was, while others completely hate it. Some think that Godzilla 98 is in canon, and some choose not to recognize its existence at all. These are but a few examples, but you sort of get the gist of where I'm going with this. People nowadays can't stand it when someone has a different opinion or idea other than them. They get angry and lash out like petulant children because being behind a computer screen affords them anonymity. They believe they can say anything and won't get in trouble for it. The image of the community is not really helped either by younger G fans who want to be hip and edgy with current fads, saying that they're going to be triggered by certain words or that they're going to expose someone and create drama. Because that's the stuff that gets clicks here on YouTube. Drama, crowd manipulation, and a leafy factor are all to blame here. It's just because people are going out of their way to disrupt others, to make themselves the center of attention because they have this high horse mentality that for some reason, their opinion and word should be taken as gospel in the community. It's elitism at its finest. Well, boys and girls, I'm here to tell you that this is not the lowest point the fandom has ever been. Far, far from it, in fact. Let me take you down memory road and tell you what I believe to be the rise and the first eventual fall for the Godzilla community. It was an event that showed me that fellow fans were ready to eat each other alive because of incredibly stupid reasons. It was like watching a bunch of titans come out of the woodwork and swallow up everything that was built to be a safe harbor and love for the fandom. This will be part 1, the rise of the community. Now before we get to the actual formation of the Godzilla community, let me tell you a few things about a younger Earth Paragon. In my informative years, I was forced to move around a lot. Being a member in a military family, you got shipped around with the luggage. So I was always a new kid in school. It was okay when I was super little, but as I got older, it was sort of harder to make friends when you were always new. Tiny kids are generally more accepting of others, but when you get older, the dynamic sort of changes. And you gotta remember, this is way back in the day, before the internet was a thing, before cell phones and long-distance phone calls were commonplace. Once you moved, you were basically lost those friends for good. There was no keeping them, not unless you wrote a letter or something like that. So as I got older, I started to depend on my family for social interactions. They were the one constant in my ever-changing life. And back then, we were pretty inseparable. Not so much anymore, but back in the day, we were pretty arm in arm. The best memories of my entire childhood revolved around me going to the movie store with my brother and trying to pick out a movie. And you basically did that by whatever VHS had the best looking movie cover. You didn't have to know anything about the film. It just had to have some awesome clamshell cover art to draw you in. A bloody skull with a miner's helmet and a human eye, and it's called Graveyard Shift? Hell yeah, sign me up, I'll watch that. So my dad would rent whatever movie we wanted, and then we would go home and we would sit on the couch and watch it. And I tell you, for that hour and a half or 2 hours or however long the movie was, I felt like I was actually belonged somewhere. No more was I a floating rock in the ever-expanding universe. I was home. I found a place that I belonged. I felt like a family. This is where I discovered Godzilla very early in my life. My parents would record the movies off the TV, and I would watch those VHS tapes into the ground. I actually wore some of them out because I used to watch them so often. So now we have little EB here. He's found a film series that he loves, and he wants to share that love with others. He wants to find other people that like to watch the same movies as him and roleplay with the characters. But the thing is, though, back in the day, there wasn't too many G fans out there. In fact, I didn't know anybody in real life that liked to watch Godzilla movies. They had their Hot Wheels, G.I. Joes, Transformers, and other stuff. And while I did like other things, Ghostbusters, TMNT, and He-Man were the bomb, I still liked Godzilla the best. But the problem was, no one around me did. I felt alone. I felt like I did all the times when we used to move around to a new state or country for my dad's tour of duty. For a long time, I honestly believed that I was the only Godzilla fan in the entire world. Because with no internet, the mind of a child does perceive his general area of the country to be the entire world. Anyway, there you have it. A very young Earth Paragon. He found himself pretty down because he was unable to share his thoughts and feelings about a fictional character with anyone else in the world. And that sort of sucked. It made me sad and a little depressed. And something else was starting to happen too as I got older. The family movie time was starting to fade away. My dad was busier with work, and my brother started to have different interests in film genres. I mean, we still liked some of the same horror and monster movies, but for the most part, he started to like different things. And all my mom had with me for common interest was the old Three Stooges shorts and Abbott and Costello flicks. Which, that's perfectly fine, I still love that stuff to this day. Slapstick humor to a kid is incredibly funny. But for now, I found myself at a conundrum. I enjoyed writing, drawing, and watching films about giant monsters. All the things that no one else in the family or friends didn't want to have anything to do with around me. And I felt more alone than I ever did. Like a single grain of sand on a beach. I felt like nothing I liked or wanted to do mattered to anybody. And I know we have spent a whole lot talking about a very young Earth Paragon, but I need you to understand where I'm coming from beforehand, because the next part will make a whole lot more sense to you here. So, you got a very sad EB living in Okinawa, Japan currently because of his dad's military service, who's currently living off base as well. Everyone around us were non-English speaking natives, and my family was beginning to have different tastes and activities and entertainment than me. So now I felt like I didn't relate to anybody anymore. But then it happened. A new age dawned and the internet became a thing that you could hook up into your house. Though, remember, this is the Stone Age version of the internet, the old 56kp dial-up modem. The thing that if you were on the internet, people couldn't use the phone in the house at the same time, where loading an 80 kilobyte picture would take a few minutes. Yeah, that archaic thing. Nevertheless, though, that internet would open a whole new world to me that I previously did not know existed. Now, I don't know how or exactly when, but I remember stumbling upon a little old site called Barry's Temple of Godzilla. The very first Godzilla website, mind you. The original, the alpha. And boy, let me tell you, my mind was freaking blown away. Here I found out about Godzilla monsters that I didn't even know existed. There was descriptions, power listings, media music files, and pictures galore. Hell, you even had 2 full-length Godzilla fan fictions. The first of their kind. And still one of the best if you ask me. Seriously, if you ever have a time, go read those things. They're freaking awesome. Especially the second one with its unique description of King Ghidorah. But getting back on track, I found a place dedicated to a movie monster that I loved. There was actually another person out there in the world that loved Godzilla movies. And by the looks of the website, he liked them even more than I did. And to a young mind like that, that was pretty hard to fathom. So it wasn't long before more Godzilla websites began to spring up left and right. And even a little Gamera one called the Shrine of Gamera. You had the Rodan's Roost, now known as Kaijuphilia, the Toho Kingdom, Monster Zero News, and Tokyo Monsters. There were others, but honestly, these were the big ones. But sadly it seems that the Toho Kingdom is the only one still kicking around. The Roost is still there, but nothing ever gets done on the site. It's mostly the forum that holds it alive. And speaking of which, forums were a thing. Actually, they were a huge thing that shaped a lot of G-fans back in the mid to late 90s. So not only did you have a cool website to go to and learn about movies and monsters that you didn't know about, but you actually had a place to visit and post things about yourself so others can see what you're saying. Again, my mind was blown. I could actually write out a paragraph on something, click a button, and anyone in the world could see it. That was freaking amazing to me. And do you know what was better? When someone replied to you. Like there was a person on another screen talking to me about Godzilla. It was pretty hard to fathom. Though, I kind of got used to it. But still, I was on a forum talking about things I liked doing in my free time. I didn't feel alone anymore. I felt like I belonged somewhere. Because, you remember, I'm an English-speaking kid in a foreign land and a non-English-speaking people. You had one English TV channel and that was it. And you were too young to go out venturing on the island by yourself, so you were at home in the apartment a lot of the time when you were not at school. But now, with the internet, I had an outlet. I had a place where I could hear the voice of someone else. Or, rather read it, but you know where I'm going with that. So, I was mostly active on the Rodan's Roost and Toho Kingdom forums right from their conception. And since I was one of the more knowledgeable Godzilla fans, I sort of became kind of popular. Eventually, I would befriend Anthony on the Kingdom and Brandon on the Roost. Both of these guys were the creators of those websites. I remember sitting on AIM, MSN, and chat rooms with those guys and a handful of others, just talking for hours on end, every other day about Godzilla or whatever else was happening in our lives. For the first time in my existence, I actually felt like I had real friends. People who actually knew me and not known of me. So, through these chat connections, I was soon asked if I wanted to be a moderator on their forums. A request that I quickly jumped at, and I didn't take it lightly. I busted my butt on there to make sure people were posting where they were supposed to be posting, that things were remaining civil with people and, all other moderator stuff. Forums that were slowly growing in size every day. More and more people were drawn to these sites, each with their own opinions and desires to talk with other fans. For the most part, people were nice. They respected each other's ideas and opinions. I know that's kind of hard to fathom, especially with the PC world of the internet nowadays, but I tell ya, there was a time that the internet was comparable to, say, Leave It to Beaver. Trolls, flame wars, and fan elitism, it wasn't even a term. Not yet, at least. But I argue that it was a glorious time to be a Godzilla fan. The Heisei series was done, and there was talks about an American Godzilla movie in the works. Yeah, that one. I was getting great grades at school, had a girlfriend, and spent my free time in the forums and chatting with fans. And I would also go to work from time to time at the grocery store I worked at, so my life was pretty full. I had everything I wanted. But you see, Brandon and me, we were always looking to make things more interactive for the Godzilla fans. We actually like to see and read what other people thought. So what better way than to make a contest on the Roost where fans can vote and decide the outcome of the event? Brilliant, Yeah, that's what we thought. It would have been the thing that brought everyone even closer to each other. Little did we know how that was going to blow up in our face. Best laid plans of mice and men, I suppose. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. That part of the story will be for part 2, the fall of the community. And I'm here to tell you that's going to be a lot more of a depressing video, I can assure you. But I wanted to make sure you all knew a little bit about me and what I viewed to be the peak of the Godzilla fandom. And like a roller coaster, it eventually has to come down. But boy, it came down. And it came down on something that me and a few other creators spent months on putting together. A project for the fans that would eventually get torn apart by the fans. Yeah. So for now, this chapter of the story is finished, and the library is closed. Tune in next time when we talk about part 2 of this look back at the Godzilla community. To all my viewers, have fun, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.